BCP45 was built in 1927 as a table seiner by Vancouver's Burrard Shipyards for Packers Steamship Company, better known as BC Packers. She was built with Douglas fir planking, oak gunnels and capping, and cedar for top planking. The three-bladed prop was originally powered by a 50 horsepower Yuba gas engine. The 45 was manually steered for her whole career. With a 47-foot keel and an overall length of 53 feet, its carrying capacity was 5,000 sockeye. In the early days, she had a 6-man crew. As time passed, some of her equipment was modernized and the crew was reduced to 5. She was capable of staying at sea for a 5-day troll or a 4-day seine in inside waters. In the beginning, the BCP45 was used for catching salmon from June until November and herring from November to March. April and May were months set aside for maintenance and refit. It spent half of its life in Kwathiaski Cove on Quadra Island as its home port. The vessel fished from the Fraser River near Vancouver to the Alaska border. The vessel rose to fame in 1958 when it was photographed by prominent Canadian photographer George Hunter near Ripple Point, just north of Campbell River during the sockeye season. The photograph appeared on the cover of the Toronto Star Sunday magazine, but rose to greater prominence when the Bank of Canada used the image on the back of the $5 bill between 1972 and 1986. The skipper at that time was Mel Lassou, with crew members Andy Dick, Fred Seville, Ron Forrest, Alan Chikite, and Alan Mearns. Hundreds of Canadian photographs were submitted in preparation for this series of banknotes. Those selected for use had to meet 2 requirements. Firstly, they had to illustrate diverse regions of the country, and secondly, in terms of composition, they had to be suitable for rendering as an engraving on the back of the banknote. In 1986, the BCP45 was invited to be a special guest of Expo 86 in Vancouver. Captain Alan Oli Chikite brought her to this event and spent his days answering numerous questions about her past and his evenings sleeping on one of her cramped bunks. As one of 185 exhibits, thousands of people walked on her decks, and Maclean's magazine rated her number 6 out of the 185 exhibits. After 68 years of service as a salmon seiner, troller, gill netter, beam trawler, and tow-off for the winter herring, the BCP45 was retired from industry in 1996. She was then donated to the BC Maritime Museum in Vancouver, where she sat for 6 years. Thanks to the Daybreak Rotary Club of Campbell River, she then returned home on June 8, 2002 to the waters of Campbell River, where she made her living and was immortalized in that historic photo. At the Maritime Heritage Centre, she is settled into retirement as its centerpiece and was restored to its 1958 configuration when the photo was taken. Out of 5 identical table seiners, 3 have sunk, 1 has been converted into a pleasure boat, and the BCP45 has been restored to its 1958 configuration. Reconstruction work on the 45 started under the direction of master boat builder Buford Haynes. Initially there were 3 working on the construction work, but in January 2005 the crew increased to 5 regular volunteers. They were Buford Haynes, Ron McDonald, Vic and Bruce Anderson, and Glenn Ashby, working mainly on the reconstruction of the boat, and Don Nelson, who worked mainly on the engine assembly and installation. At first there was hope that with some minor repairs and a coat of paint, the BCP45 would be completed. It quickly became evident that this was not the reality, and that a far more extensive repair was necessary. A thorough evaluation of the boat was undertaken, and a list of the required materials was compiled. Based on this information, a proposal was submitted to the Board of Directors of the Maritime Heritage Centre that would return the BCP45 back to its 1958 configuration when the historic photo was taken. This proposal was enthusiastically supported. Since the repairs were so extensive and since there was really no money available, We enlisted the cooperation and donations from many corporate citizens and individuals. The major ones include Weyerhaeuser, who supplied the logs that were used for planking, beams, clamps, and major structural members; Ron Bond, who cut the planking and the beams from the logs that were supplied by Weyerhaeuser; Tom Palin from Palin Timber, who arranged from Timber West to supply enough logs for the decking, seine table, cabin repairs, lining, and bulwarks. Palin Timber had the logs custom cut and delivered to the Maritime Heritage Centre. Norske Canada supplied all of the stainless steel fasteners for the planking and the decking. Alec Bakey provided the 80 horsepower Vivian diesel engine. United Carpet supplied and installed the linoleum flooring in the galley and the wheelhouse area. Vicker Electric Limited supplied and installed all the electrical components. Campbell River Metal Fabricators supplied and installed the quilted aluminum around the coal stove, as well as the engine room, fuel tanks, and the deck ladder and handrails. Class A Interiors Limited provided the 6 crew bunk mattresses, and A.J. Forsyth supplied the steel required to support and turn the net table. Red and Net Company Limited provided the multitude of ropes, clips, pulleys, cables, and fasteners. And Ole, John, and Lloyd Chakite, Moses, Dan, and James Quattel, Tim Hobbs, and John Wesden supplied all the material required to build the 1,200-foot functional net. Grant Signs painted the identification lettering on the boat, and Busy Bees Glass supplied the Dodger plastic. The BCP45 is recognized as a National Historic Site. It is a significant recognition by Canadians on the importance that the fishing industry, in its broadest sense, brings to our economy, and the direct and indirect influence that the industry has had on our lives. In a narrowing view, it spans the generations by reminding us of the changes that have taken place in vessel construction and technology. At the local level, we can proudly point to the $5 bill and say that that vessel is housed in the Maritime Heritage Centre and spent its entire working life around the Campbell River, Cape Mudge area. Its preservation ensures that future generations will be able to see firsthand the type of wooden construction that now has almost disappeared. Restoration work has taken about 3 years and has been done all by volunteers. It's amazing to see how many people have been touched directly and indirectly by this vessel as she worked for so many years up and down the coast. Every week, it seems, there is another person that has a story to tell. The Maritime Heritage Society wish to thank all of the corporations, businesses, and individuals that supported the reconstruction of the BCP45. Without their help, this undertaking could not have been completed.